We're now live.
Working, is that? Okay. Just give me one moment. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Wednesday, the 16th of September, today's Cabinet meeting. Apologies for the 10-minute delay. It was just due to internet connection problems, but massive apologies to anyone who's listening. For the purpose of the record of attendance, I confirm that the following members are present and participating in this remote meeting. Councillor Lee Higgins and Councillor Alan Pearson. We also have the following council's participants in attendance, and I read Chris Evans, Jeannie Douglas and Councillor Pat Cumbers. Any member participating by remote link who declares an interest in any item of business in terms which requires them to leave the room must ensure that they cannot be seen or heard during the agenda item. This shall be confirmed by Democratic Services. This member of staff will therefore confirm to the remote member when they may rejoin the meeting. Should any aspect of the conference link fail during this meeting, I will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the link can quickly be re-established. If the link cannot be re-established, the meeting shall be adjourned to a later date. In the event of a link failure for individual members, the remote member or user will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure of the equipment. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the item provided the meeting remains quorate. Should the meetings no longer be quorate, the meeting shall be adjourned and any remaining items of business will be deferred. If the individual member's link is successfully re-established, then the remote member will be deemed to have returned at the point of re-establishment. I would ask members please to indicate their wish to speak by raising their hand using the raise hand tool on the Zoom. I will then invite each member in turn to make their contribution to the debate. Before proceeding to the vote, I will ensure that all members and officers have no further comments by confirming that no hands are raised. I will ask each member to indicate when asked whether they are voting for, against, or abstaining. This will be recorded by Democratic Services officers who will confirm the outcome of the vote. Any member who has been absent from the debate on a particular item due to link failure must abstain from the vote on that item. So moving to the agenda, we have apologies from absence and we have Councillor Freer Jones and Councillor Ronnie DeBell. To confirm the meetings, minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 5th of July 2020, I will move those minutes. Councillor Higgins, will you second?
I could, Chair. I was just wondering if we could just alter one of the minutes on page 9. It's the third bullet point down. I think it's been captured incorrectly because it said members were concerned that the guidance within the policy was too liberal for officers in relation to consideration of income and yield, which is correct. And then it goes on to state, which I think isn't correct, and that it assumed that they had a certain level of Royal Institute Chartered Surveyors knowledge when this may not be the case. Now, I just want it to be clear that we're not saying that members are have a certain level of RICS knowledge, but obviously it's in terms of potentially officers. So if that could just be a bit clarified, that's all, because it looks as if you read it in one way, that members may have RICS knowledge. And obviously that can change from time to time.
Yeah, Lee did raise this last night, and so if that could be amended, Natasha, please. Is everyone happy with that? If you could raise your hands. Alan is, and so is Councillor Higgins. So yeah, that can be amended, please, Natasha. Declarations of interest. I invite all Cabinet members who wish to do so to make declarations of interest in respect of any of the items on the agenda for this meeting. Alan?
Just as normal, as a interest as a county councillor, just to cover everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also declare personal interest as a county councillor, as I'm a member of that authority. Moving on to matters referred from scrutiny committee in accordance with scrutiny procedure rules. No items have been referred. So moving on to the main agenda now, the first paper, capital programme monitoring to 31st of July. Dawn Garton, Director of Corporate Services, to summarise the report. Over to you, Dawn, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So the report sets out the latest position on the budget for all the funds with regard to the Council's capital programme to the end of July 2020. The detailed position for each project split between the general fund and the housing revenue account is set out in the appendices, and there's a summary at 5.1. You will note that budget holders are indicating that the spend at the year end will be in line with the budget. However, I do want to point out to Cabinet that as a result of capacity issues due to COVID-19, there could be some projects that might slip into next year. And whilst we've got some of those projects that have actually started preparatory work, there is that risk. A clearer picture will emerge as we move through the year, and a report will be made to Cabinet again later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dawn. In Ronnie's absence, I'm very happy to move the recommendation and have no further information other than what the paper says, actually. But the important thing is it is a paper effectively where a budget is being set just to monitor the progress of the council. So it's a regular paper. It does it very well. Obviously, it's fairly limited in the amount of projects we have, but very pleased to move that paper. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Higgins, I think. Yeah, thank you very much. Does any member have anything to say on this paper at all?
Just a quick one is just to reiterate what Dawn was saying is in the portfolio that I work with Pranali on, we were just discussing only this week of some of the projects that we have to move into next year. One is the support for rural pubs and the diversification for those. We were going to launch in April this year. For obvious reasons, it wasn't appropriate to launch it, and that's then been delayed. And because of how everything is at the moment, and that sector is very much struggling at the moment, we're going to have to delay that until probably the next year when they can take advantage of that programme. So it's just an example of capital projects that are having to be moved back.
Yeah, that's fine. This paper is a little bit light, what we call it precisely. Alan, do you have anything to say at all?
Yeah, there's quite a few projects that I feel that have been around a long time. One that always has been there for forever is Fairmead regeneration. Is there a chance that we can review all these projects and again, you know, maybe leave some on or take some off? I just think there's quite a big list, and I can remember, you know, about prioritising, but definitely Fairmead's been around for ages, hasn't it?
I hear what you say, Alan, but understandably, we've had 6 months now of COVID, and it really has impacted on the organisation of Melton Borough Council. I'm sure you respect that, but I can assure you everything is under constant review. Now, I understand from this no one else is indicating they want to speak. So members, if I could ask you to raise your hands, please. I have Lee, I have myself. That's if you're in favour. Alan, all in favour. So I confirm the recommendation to note that no further, that has been passed. Is that okay, Democratic Services? I just look to your approval.
Yes, Councillor Orson.
Raising the Zoom button actually right at the last moment, but I prefer to do it by raise hand if that's okay.
That's fine, Councillor Orson. That particularly recommendation is to note anyway, so it doesn't necessarily need the vote, but no, that's fine. That was unanimous.
Yeah, we have noted, and obviously to the 31st of July. Yeah. So general fund, next paper, Dawn, budget monitoring, April to 30th of June 2020. If you could summarise the report, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader.
Again, this, by the way, just butt in a little bit, sorry, but this paper is for noting only.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So, again, another budget monitoring report, this time the revenue budget, but only for the general fund, but both general and special expenses. But it does include, as well as being up to Q1, it includes a forecast up to the end of the financial year. And it incorporates the impact on the council's finances as a result of COVID-19. So with regard to the general expenses, the forecast is for an overspend of around 59,000, and for special expenses, Melton Mowbray, 2,000. However, I will caveat that with saying that we are looking at what might be an appropriate portion of COVID costs that we need to charge to special expenses. So that will be updated as we move forward in the financial year. As I said, it does include the estimated impact of COVID in terms of additional expenditure, but also as well estimated lost income, which is significant for the council as reduced by government grants. It's important to note that one of these grants is an income compensation scheme grant, where we've yet to submit our first claim, and therefore the amount that's incorporated into the forecast is very much an estimate. And we'll be working through those figures, and also starting to understand some of the parameters around that funding grant. We also will need to offset against that grant claim any savings that we've made for any of those lost income streams. So again, that's something else that might reduce that grant claim, and we've tried to take that into account in the forecasts. One thing the forecasts do not take into account are any bad debts that might arise and that might have to be written off, and that's from council tax, business rates and other income streams such as property rentals. However, the government has said that it's looking to provide some kind of support in for bad debts for council tax and business rates, but we don't know what the nature of that scheme is and how much that might be due to the council from that. What you should note is that in order to achieve those forecast overspends, which I think in light of COVID are actually quite modest, we've had to look for in-year service savings, and we've managed to reduce budgets by around 284,000 in order to bring those overspends down to that kind of level. So that's a tremendous achievement that budget holders and finance have done together to make sure that we try and keep on track against all those pressures that we've got in year. If it were not the case, so if we didn't manage to find those savings, then of course the shortfall would have had to be met from your limited revenue reserves, and that would impact on the council's future financial sustainability. So I can't emphasise enough what an important piece of work that has been. The detail behind all the variances is set out in the report at paragraph 5.4, and not only COVID variances but also business as usual variances are set out in that section. I can also update as well, whilst this is at Q1, period 4 monitoring is indicating a similar trend. So when we take it forward to the end of July, we're not seeing any significant variation at that point against what's reported here either. And I'll just conclude by drawing your attention to the risks section and the overall strategic risk that's set out in that table relating to the council's finances. So this is the highest risk on the council's risk register, and it reflects the pressure that you already had as a council regarding future financial sustainability as a result of a number of years of cuts in local government funding, followed by the uncertainty regarding that ongoing funding in future years. And that's obviously been made worse by the uncertainty created by COVID, not just for the current financial year, but also the impact as we move forward and try to review our medium-term financial strategy against the backdrop of all that financial uncertainty. And I'll leave it there and hand over to member for any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dawn. I'm very happy to move the recommendation, which is that the year-end forecast and financial position for the general fund and special expenses at the 30th of June 2019 be noted. So before I report any further, do I have a seconder at this precise time? Councillor Higgins. Just a few points to make. It's quite an interesting paper, actually, Dawn. I mean, it's a very short paper, the main paper, and yet there's a lot of information there in the appendices and things like that. but it's quite interesting that a £59,000 overspend on general fund and the special expenses. What a lot of members will be interested in is in 1.2 actually right at the start, which is a 1.3 million overspend for the 2021 forecast across all the services, across alongside an additional 51k overspend from reduced investment income. That is interesting. But also what's going to be massively interesting to all is the additional government funding of 1.52 million to cover additional costs and loss of income related to COVID-19. It's also good to hear, I didn't realise quite actually that I thought this was reported to the senior leadership team every 3 months. I didn't realise it was every month until today, so that's good news. But of course it does come to Cabinet every 3 months. So members, is there anything you'd like to say on this report at all? Alan?
Yeah, just a few points. We've saved some funds on regarding environmental maintenance, a post not being filled, economic development, a post, I think, if I'm reading it right, some savings there. Again, we review all the time, Joe. Yeah, I guess that these positions, the need of them and the cost of them is quite interesting. Also, the portfolio, another 20 grand was saved. I just think it's interesting that it's a shame it's the environment and the economic development, which I think we'll need a lot of in the time to come, because they're the positions that we're struggling to fill by the looks of it, and we've saved funds on. I think the main question is, can we just have the corporate management team? There's the efficiency that we didn't meet at 38k. Is there a reason for that?
I'd look to Dawn.
Dawn?
So that was a provision that was made for looking at the structure within communities, the communities team. And obviously, because of the response that we've needed to do for COVID, obviously that's been a really high priority for the council, meeting the community needs at this time. So not only was it felt not appropriate to start that review at this point in time, but also the capacity just hasn't been there either to progress that. So I don't know whether the Director of Housing and Communities wants to come in on that one, but that was the primary reason why we've not achieved that.
Is it there, Andrew?
Yes, going to support what the Director for Corporate Services has said in terms of the when the budgets were set, it was a pre-COVID world, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The impact, as I'd only be repeating what the other director said, but I would just support her comments.
Okay.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Dawn and Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, Alan. I think so. Okay, members, we'll go to the vote. I'm going to
Joe, sorry. Joe, would you mind, Joe? So I just make a quick comment, just if I can. I think just if I can add my thanks to colleagues for the work they've done in this report, and obviously the support of members, because I don't think we should underestimate the challenge there's been in the finances. And actually, if as a council we hadn't reacted in the way we have and found those savings, then we'd be reporting a 5% overspend on our budget for the year end, which would have a massive drain on our resources. So there has been a lot of work to get us into what is a relatively balanced position, which I think is great credit to colleagues both in finance and across the council. But they are, as Councillor Pearson identifies, they are not without pain and they are not without compromises, and that does put pressure on us. And we will continue to lobby through the LGA and into government for them to continue to support us, because at the moment the funding we have received is not yet where it needs to be to cover all the costs and the loss of income. And I think particularly as we look to next year as well, there are challenges around that. So it is something we will continue to maintain a rigorous focus on, Leader, and we'll obviously keep you appraised as to any further developments.
Okay,
can I just say that response to Ed for that? Sorry, Joe, but totally support what Ed said there. I just think the Melton Borough, it's just not this report. The response to the COVID has been, we all agree, you've said it, Joe, one of the best in the county. It's been very responsive, but something like this, there's always going to be some pain as well. We just have to get on with it.
It is fair to say that right across Leicestershire, the districts have been nothing short of excellent, all 7 of them.
Definitely.
They have delivered to their customers. It goes to show the advantage of smaller councils. It goes to show the advantage of the district or borough councils, whatever you like to call them, the flexibility they have, the ability they have to make quick decisions on the ground, and that brings a focus onto the delivery of service to local people, and that's what local people want at the end of the day. It's also
Right.
flexibility to draw and to readjust the budget as it goes. Lee, then we'll go to the vote.
Yeah, well, no, just to reiterate what you just said there, I'm the Chief Executive. I think this paper and the services that have been delivered by not just Melton Borough Council, but district councils up and down Leicestershire and across England especially, it shows that district and borough councils are alive and well. You know, I think when some people intimate that councils only do things for either money or whatever, I think you couldn't be further from the truth. It's more about actually delivering for your communities and what's at the end of the street. And, you know, and we've been talking this morning, Joe, about some potholes and one lady who's got an issue with a hedge or whatever. And it's having that very close, good kind of you know, as a councillor should do, be an advocate for their community. And I think this paper does show that. And congratulations to our officers and officers up and down the county as well. Just a quick question. I don't know if it's a typo, but in the place portfolio on page 16, Dawn, it says car parks always gets raised. Income shortfall 525, but on page 28 it says 225. Is it a typo or is it? And when I'm looking on page 24, it's the main code line 120, and it's in the blurb there. While Dawn's just answering that, it does show, Leader, as well, is obviously with the headwinds that COVID and the economic downturn as we've had to go into lockdown has had an impact on, you know, various income streams such as that. And I think if the council had either not reacted in the way it did to support the community or just carried on throwing money out the window, I think as the Section 151 officer, that risk, which is the highest I've ever seen a risk in there, it wouldn't just be a risk, it probably would have been a formality, and we would have been having to look at something completely different. So I think it's been testament to the senior leadership team as well.
Yeah, apologies. I don't know what the difference is, why there's a difference on that one at all. I have to come back to the councillor on that one.
Yeah, if you could email us all, that's perfectly okay. Just to respond to Councillor Higgins, the importance of keeping local delivery local and local decision making is absolutely paramount. Certainly, Melton Borough Council, everything that's happened with COVID has made me as leader very, very proud to be leader at that present time. Absolutely amazing what the council's done. So well done, guys, right across the council. And also well done to members for allowing that flexibility to happen as well. Now, I'm going to move to the vote. I'm going to raise my hand like that. Those in favour. Councillor Higgins is going to, by the looks of it. Councillor Pearson, I don't want you to do yours automatically because it goes all funny when you do nowadays. But you raise your hand physically, so that's fine. Now, so we have moved the recommendation, being seconded, being voted in favour. So I confirm the recommendation has been, and the vote has been made required. Natasha, okay?
Yes, that was unanimously in favour. Thank you, Councillor Alston.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item set 7, housing revenue account budget monitoring, 1st of April to 30th of June 2020. I presume that we are going to move a recommendation to note the report. That's all. It's only to note. But Andrew is going to take us through the report first. Thank you.
I think that's me, Leader.
Okay, I've got in mind Andrew Cotton to summarise. I'm not too concerned who it is, but
okay, I'll start, and then if Andrew wants to add to that, then. So again, another revenue budget monitoring report for the end of the first quarter, with a forecast to the end of the financial year. This time, with regard to the housing revenue account, the forecast is indicating £110,000 overspend whilst maintaining the minimum agreed working balance of £750,000. This would result in a reduced transfer to the council's reserve at the year end to support expenditure on regeneration and development projects. You can see the detail in the appendix, and the key reasons for the underspend are direct COVID expenditure on staffing and cleaning, along with reduced income due to voids being higher than budget, which in turn leads to additional council tax expenditure. We've also got the withdrawal of the health and safety service charge, which resulted in reduced income, with some of these additional costs being offset by some extent by vacancy savings and an underspend on repairs and maintenance. Alongside this, we've also got a risk that's not been factored in, similar to the general fund, and that's around increasing bad debts as a result of COVID and tenants struggling to pay their rent. And to date, unlike the general fund, there's been no specific government grants that have been provided to support the housing revenue account, although we do report the financial impact monthly to government. So we'll continue to lobby to get some support into the housing revenue account from government. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Dawn. Like I say, I will be moving a recommendation to note the report. There isn't a lot left for me to say, actually. Dawn said it all, I believe, anyway, unless someone's going to track me out on that one. But certainly, as it says in the summary, to provide information on the actual expenditure. And 30th of June, budget holders are prepared forecast outturn for the HRA and overspend 110,000. That's the important bit to me to work on. And obviously the working balance, which we agreed at the last meeting. Am I right on that, Adele? Last meeting we agreed to 750,000 for the regeneration and development reserve. That's been maintained. Or Dawn, are you best placed?
Sorry, the regeneration redevelopment reserve. Yeah, we have had some movement from there as you've provided support to additional priorities in the year. But as a result of the underspend at the end of last year, it's at slightly a higher level than that was in the HIP. But of course, this overspend would reduce that back further down again.
No problems. Thank you very much. I look for a seconder, Deputy Leader. Okay. Comments, members, if you got anything. Alan?
Yeah, just go through. Let's go through expenditure 5.22. We had a overspend on cleaning and staffing. Can we? I'd like just that expanded on. Is that cleaning of voids, or where was the cleaning, and how does it come under the HRA? I'm just interested if Dawn can explain that.
Ask Alan, do you see this budget before the cabinet meetings, or what?
Sorry.
As portfolio leader on effectively housing, do you have a regular review of the account?
Not all the time, yeah. Sometimes, but not others. No. We get them at the cabinet and the briefing, yes. But I'm just interested that what we've got documented is that we get a bit more explanation that it's additional cleaning. I'm just interested where and when. It'd be nice to have it in the document.
Happy to respond to that, Leader, if you would like. That's additional cleaning in the sheltered schemes, Councillor Pearson, particularly COVID related. Obviously, the communal areas, we did far more regular cleaning of the hard surfaces.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. No, what I'm saying is, Joe, what I'm trying to get to is that's a very important that it goes to highlight the reason and how important it is. And how we're taking seriously cleaning these facilities, so we have the health of the tenants at the centre of our care. I guess I'm just saying it'd be nice to have those sort of things a bit more documented. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So you're happy with the answer anyway, Alan? Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that we're doing some good work, and sometimes the documents don't really say it, if you know what I mean, Joe.
Well, I'm more than happy, because obviously the safety of all our tenants and staff who enter those buildings is absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody else wants to say anything, so I ask members to raise their hands. Alan can do his physically if he wants. be safer.
Well, if I press it, it goes all pear-shaped. I don't know what's going on.
We don't want that, Alan. So thank you very much. So Natasha, we confirm the recommendation is to note, therefore, we move on. Are you happy with that?
Thank you, Councillor Orson, yes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next paper, which must be agenda item 9, I would think. It's the annual Ombudsman report. Am I right?
Agenda item 8 is the annual Ombudsman report.
Is it? Oh, crikey, sorry. Yes, so you're
Jumping the gun.
No, I haven't. I moved on the scroll without thinking, sorry. Yes, thank you, Natasha, for keeping on the straight and narrow. Yes, so move over to Adele. Would you like to introduce this paper, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. So this report provides an update to Cabinet following the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman annual report letter. It also provides a summary of the complaints received by the Council for the year ending the 31st of March 2020. From the letter and spreadsheet appended, members will see that for the financial year 2019-20, 10 complaints were received by the Ombudsman. There's a table at 5.1 which details which areas these complaints relate to. Out of the 10 referrals, 2 complaints were not upheld, 2 complaints were upheld, 5 were closed after initial inquiries, and 1 advice was given. The table at 5.3 provides a breakdown of these complaints and the Ombudsman's decisions for each. Of 2 complaints that were upheld, the first was categorised as a planning complaint, and the Ombudsman found that whilst there was fault in the way the Council had made its decision, it would not have affected the outcome of the planning decision. And the second was categorised as environmental services and public protection and regulation, and concerns the Council's handling of a noise and antisocial behaviour complaint. And the Ombudsman made a finding of fault in the way that the Council had dealt with the complaint, and those faults had caused stress. Compensation in the sum of £300 was agreed to be paid, and a letter of satisfaction was received from the Ombudsman, which closed that complaint in October. So following the findings in the 2 cases mentioned, a number of service improvements have been put in place to minimise reoccurrences, and these are detailed in the report at paragraph 5.4. So performance in relation to Ombudsman complaints is one of the Council's key performance indicators, and in 100% of cases, the Ombudsman was satisfied that the Council had successfully implemented recommendations they've made, and that compares to an average of 99% in similar authorities. So by way of comparison to previous years, the number of upheld complaints in 2019-20 is 1 more than last year, but the uphold rate was 50% less. So that compares to 45% for similar authorities. And then following on from the Ombudsman annual review, the report also sets out the number of corporate complaints received during 2019-20 and compares those figures to last year. There has been an increase in complaints received, which may be as a result of more robust processes internally, which records complaints centrally. The process is continually being refined to ensure we are capturing complaint data. And what we're trying to look at now is identifying trends for the complaints received. We're looking at how we can identify lessons learned and identify service improvements. And we have oversight from the senior leadership team in that. Also, to ensure strategic oversight by Cabinet, and to ensure continuous service complaints are going to be included within quarterly performance reports to Cabinet from now on. And in addition, Scrutiny Committee will be receiving Cabinet's performance reports as part of their role of holding the Cabinet to account. The Scrutiny will also receive a report on complaints periodically for extra strategic oversight. I'm happy to take any questions, and I know that my portfolio holder, Councillor Fred Jones, has been very involved in this report, and she regularly receives updates on that. So she does send her apologies for tonight, as she would have enjoyed to present this report. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you for reminding me that Alison does sterling work on this, and congratulations to Alison. I mean, the Ombudsman, yeah, it's been around a long while now, hasn't it, the local Ombudsman? And in some ways, it's always good to see we've only had 2 upheld cases against us. Can you just, I know you did mention other authorities local to us, but how do we actually relate to our 6 colleagues in Leicestershire when it comes to the number of complaints, Adele?
Without having the data specifically in front of me, Joe, but there is a really useful tool as part of it, which I can send out, which you can basically go into any authority within the country and find out how they are doing. So I know in terms of, I look specifically at Oby and Wigston Borough Council because they are of a similar size when I looked at it, and we compare, you know, very similar. We perform a tiny bit better in terms of the Ombudsman upholding rate, but apart from that, we're very similar. So I think they're pretty standard throughout the county.
Okay. Members, it is to note the report, so I will move that recommendation, and I do invite a seconder, Councillor Higgins. Thanks very much. I don't have anything else to say. Actually, it's all in the report. It's straightforward. 2 upheld against us. It's a shame we've got 2. It's too many, let's be honest. But even so, it's a low number at the end of the day. And I'm not going to say I'm satisfied with a low number. Actually, it'd be great if it could be 0. And but obviously the council strives to look after all our residents and give them the service they demand. Alan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I support you, Joe. You know, if it was 0, that would be great. We do also have to look at the severity of any complaint. You get minor ones, more serious ones, which sometimes doesn't show up in this. But I will say, from a county council point of view, there's been a dramatic increase of complaints at LCC, very high, and a number of them have been upheld as well. So, in comparing to a meeting I was at recently, that we've done very well in comparison to some of the complaints that we're getting at the LCC.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Higgins, I don't like you. Lee, sorry.
Yeah, well, I won't go into too much of the report because I think you and Councillor Pearson have discussed on that. Just one, and I think it's important that all members scrutinise the council and the council performance on this. But I do have to raise, obviously, one of the upheld ones is a case very, very similar to one that I had to advocate on behalf of members of the public. Some that I know are watching this today after the publication of this report, because they were concerned that it states that the council had implemented the recommendations, but this particular complaint which I had to raise, came in February this year. It wasn't just MBC, but there was some antisocial behaviour. Councillor Pearson knows on this one as well, and thank you, Alan, for the work you had done on it. It is that antisocial behaviour of noise, you see. So no, anyway.
That was definitely noise. I think we better send a note to him. What do you reckon, Lee?
But in seriousness, is this just seems very identical to a very tragic case that I had been working on, and I've got a meeting with Andrew on Friday about this particular area of how we're solving it all. But the concerns I have is where it is some of the lack of communication, and it says that we have implemented this, but it obviously didn't happen in this case when it came to attention back in February. And so I just think in this, when it is people's lives, we do need to challenge ourselves healthily as well to make sure we're still meeting these rather than just taking at face value on that, because obviously this particular issue happened after 14th of October. So I would just very welcome the officers to come back on that of how we can demonstrate we have put these recommendations into practice, especially on the communication with members as well as affected residents. Thank you.
I'd be happy to come back on that, Leader. I think really important points from Councillor Higgins there, and very correct in highlighting the impact of residents. And we see numbers on a page, and of course there's always people behind them. I think that's absolutely right. And I think that in terms of the learning points from the Ombudsman, it is an opportunity to learn and to respond and to improve our systems and our processes. And I think as well that we do have that commitment to continuous improvement and review and refresh, and clearly members have an important part to play in that process too. So I think that it is it is about us having that reassurance and using our own sort of internal processes as a check and balance. And I think that when we're talking in detail, about cases such as this, I think we'll be able to give that reassurance. It's also about using, for example, internal audit as a test of our processes and to seek assurance. I think as well, in terms of antisocial behaviour in particular, I point at the really excellent relationships we do have with other agencies that are developing all the time, and the work through the Community Safety Partnership is really key to that. So I think that any Ombudsman report does reflect a snapshot of the council at that time, and I would hope that we're able to demonstrate that the way in which the council moves forward and that commitment to continuous improvement. And again, it's so important not to lose sight of people in that. And we talk about processes and systems, and of course we must always be aware that there's people that receive our services, and as a small borough council, we're really conscious of that and the residents and the way in which antisocial behaviour can affect their lives.
Can I comment, Joe?
Yes, of course.
I think Lee's got some points. I think we need to highlight is that we are meeting on Friday, Andrew and Lee and myself, to discuss this, and it is an issue. There is some issues, and I'm sure from our ability to discuss and work out the best way forward, I'm sure we'll do that on Friday and discuss the positives and the negatives and what happened and how we can move on from that. And that's what we're here for, to do that. And I'm looking forward to the meeting on Friday, and hopefully we'll get some very clear points that we can next year or next time we get this report, it's zero.
Yeah.
Leader, could I just add a couple of comments? I think just again to add my reassurance to that of the other officers who commented is there's absolutely no complacency on this. So we always regard any complaint, to be honest, as a learning opportunity. So we'll learn from feedback, we'll take that, we won't be defensive, and we'll think about how we can develop and improve in the way Andrew described. I think the other reassurance I would offer is going next week to council is our refreshed corporate strategy, which puts as one of our 6 priorities service excellence. And that is where we are continually seeking to challenge ourselves to make sure we design services around people, not around processes or structures, and certainly making sure that we are intolerant of silos and narrow-minded thinking that sometimes clouds being effective in relating to people in the way, again, Andrew described. The other thing I would say is that obviously we put a lot of work on resource already into strengthening the housing team through Andrew's leadership, and also in Adele's team through regulatory services. So I think we're on the right track. And whilst we can never guarantee we won't have complaints, I can assure you that we will take them all seriously and respond as far as we can in the right way.
Yeah, it's nature of the business we're in a little bit. It's very difficult to satisfy 48,000 people, but to only have 2 complaints upheld actually is nothing short of good, excellent, really, when you think about it. But even so, it's still too many, as we all agree. It's always good as well to not try and get focused too much on one at a cabinet meeting, because obviously we're looking at the whole case, really. Now, I have moved the recommendation that the cabinet note the local government ombudsman annual review letter 2019-20. I have a seconder. So members, ask you to raise your hands. Yeah, that's all there. So I confirm the recommendation to note. Natasha, okay?
Yes, thank you. That's unanimous, Councillor Orson.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the housing revenue account rent setting and service charge, which is agenda item 9. Again, I do have Andrew Cotton to introduce this paper too. So over to you, Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So this is a report for Cabinet's consideration, seeking approval for a policy in relation to rent and service charge setting in the council's housing stock. And the policy recognises the importance of the rent and service charge income and paying for the services that tenants and leaseholders receive. In terms of rent setting, though, due to statute and regulation, the council's options are limited, but those responsibilities are confirmed in the policy. Importantly as well, the policy provides a framework of principles in relation to service charge setting and recovery, and that's based around transparency and reasonableness, also with charges depooled and disaggregated, except where that's impracticable. Cabinet will, I'm sure, note that consideration in the report in terms of the financial impact on tenants, but also the council's approach to debt recovery, and also a summary of responses to a formal consultation exercise that took place over the summer. There are, of course, some important next steps if the policy is approved, which includes work in preparation for the next financial year, 21-22, including work with the Tenants Forum Executive Committee on the information provided on the rent increase notice, and also to new tenants when they're signing up for their new property. A summary of options considered is included in the report, and the recommendations are based around Cabinet noting the content of the report and the responses received through consultation, the approval of the policy, and also a delegation to continue work on the calculation of rents on the basis rents and service charges on the basis of the new policy, and authority to make any minor amendments that come up through changes to regulation. And of course, Leader, happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you very, very much, Andrew. I invite Councillor Pearson to move the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 A and B. So over to you, Alan.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Andrew and the officers for taking this. It was a great job, a very difficult job, but a job that Andrew grabbed hold of, and as you realise, needed to be done. It's been really well thought out from the point of being a tenant, and how we can best look after our stock, but mainly look after our tenants with a fair rent, an affordable rent, and how we calculate it. So, and there's a number of items within the document that are very important, so that we are not only a fair, compassionate landlord, but also we look after our stock for the future of further people wishing to use social housing. So I spoke at length and for many hours, I guess, with Andrew on this. We did start it a while ago before Andrew was here, and I think it was pulled in and reviewed. We're including TFEC, of course, the tenants group, which is very important. So all the way along the pathway, we've been consultative and looking at all angles. So I totally support this and look for my colleagues to support this. So I give it my total support. Thank you.
Excellent, Alan. Congratulate yourself and Andrew and all the whole of the team for the work that's being done in housing at this moment in time. Over a year ago, things were a little bit bleaker, shall we say, and a bit darker days in housing, but it's been a massive turnaround. And as leader, I'm absolutely delighted with work and effort that everyone's put into this. I'm very happy to second that proposal. Lee, do you have anything to say? I have nothing else to say.
No, nothing really. The only thing is, just like Alan said, is I think it was probably last year we saw some charges in, for example, for some electrical work, which was a communal area, and in effect, basically every renter and tenant that we had was paying for that, but including the electricity charge, which but now it's going to be focused on the benefit of who it's there for. So service charges are the right way up. On the other side of it, is with service charges is then it can be reinvested back in the property, and especially to get the health and safety right. It puts the whole housing revenue account on a more sustainable footing, so we can make sure that as Alan says, in a compassionate way, in a fair way, but that we provide good housing to our residents when they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, it's time to vote on this. So I ask you to raise your hand. Those in favour? I have all three of us have voted. Democrat Natasha, can you confirm the voting for me, please?
Yes, that was unanimously in favour of the recommendations.
Okay, so all okay with you, Natasha?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Olsen.
Thank you. Moving on to the next paper, which must be agenda item 10, the 5-year housing land supply. I've read the paper. It's a good news story by what I read. But I ask Pranali to introduce the paper to us all, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I am really pleased to introduce this paper. It's a really positive story demonstrating a significant step change in our position in relation to the housing land supply. And of course, it's quite important to maintain the 5-year supply to really demonstrate the delivery of the local plan, but also to avoid the unwanted developments in inappropriate locations. This report really shows that Melton, we have achieved this exceptional position to evidence the over 11 years of supply here, which is almost double the number that was kind of stated in the local plan for this year. And it's quite, this follows that upward trend since we approved the local plan, and it's a real demonstration that the confidence the adoption of the local plan has created in the market and in the developers' world, providing the certainty of delivery and therefore reducing the risk for private sector to step in. So yeah, this is a really good story, and while we should really be congratulating ourselves and rejoice in it, we definitely cannot be complacent. We cannot underestimate the task of the whole delivery of the local plan and the related infrastructure that goes with it, and the work we are doing in terms of delivering the 2 sustainable urban neighborhoods, northern and southern one, including the sites in rural areas, is very crucial, and we need to continue working on that. I'll just introduce my colleague here, Sarah Legg, who is the local plans manager, and her team has done this fantastic job of not only preparing the local plan documents, but also then monitoring of the whole process and data collection. So Sarah will talk us through the target numbers, the data behind the positive story, and the COVID implications on the supply and the risks that we need to consider. Sarah, over to you.
Thanks, Pranali. This 5-year housing land supply and trajectory report sets out the Council's 5-year supply position related to the stepped housing requirement as set out in the local plan revised main modification that was in June 2018. Unfortunately, this year it's a little later than usual due to the team being redeployed to administer the business grants during the COVID-19 lockdown. So we do apologise, it's a couple of months late. The approval of this report is sought in order to meet the requirement as identified in paragraph 73 of the National Planning Policy Framework. This states that local planning authorities should identify and update annually a supply of specific deliverable sites sufficient to provide a minimum of 5 years' worth of housing against the housing requirement as set out in our adopted strategic policies. The report also demonstrates compliance with the monitoring framework as set out at Appendix 5 of the adopted local plan. In terms of planning decisions, if the Council cannot demonstrate a minimum of 5 years housing land supply, including any appropriate buffer required, the presumption in favour of sustainable development will apply as set out in paragraph 11D of the NPPF. This would mean that national policies would take precedence over local policies, and if a site is considered to represent sustainable development, then planning permission should be granted even if it's not supported by the Council. In the year 2019 to 2020, there were 334 net housing completions in the borough against the target of 170, reaffirming the optimistic trend that was started last year. Completions relate to the amount of overall completed dwellings, but not occupations. And of those 334 homes, 73 of those were affordable. With this level of net completions, 2019 to 2020 is only the second year since 2011 with the number of completions exceeding the requirement. And on this occasion, the number of completions is almost double the requirement. As the Council has delivered 100% or more of its requirement over the last 3 years, the 2019 housing delivery test allows the Council to move from a 20% buffer on its supply down to 5%. but the buffer still ensures choice and competition in the market for land.
Sorry.
The 2019 National Planning Policy Framework and associated guidance tightened up the definition of deliverable housing sites. And as stated in the report, we consider that the calculation which results in 11.6 years is robust. You'll see, however, that the paper has explored and considered alternative scenarios at paragraphs 4.6 and 6 to ensure that the council can be confident that it can meet the minimum requirements. In addition, we've built in a delay allowance to address the potential for further delays owing to any future lockdowns that might come along relating to COVID-19. The data was collected between April and June this year and based on a thorough individual assessment of sites and their deliverability. This involved data collection from developers, landowners, and the case officers in the planning department, and is considered to be the most robust scenario. The alternative scenarios considered remove sites which don't yet have planning permission but are allocated, and or remove sites that have outline permission. A more optimistic scenario is also explored, which adds sites which are currently being determined. As a worst case scenario, the council believes it consider 8.2 years of housing supply, and at a best case, 12.3 years. As Chapter 6 of Appendix A, which is summarised within the report at paragraph 4.11, members will see that as part of our questions to developers and landowners, we took the opportunity to ask questions relating to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've attempted to relate the impact of that to which was experienced in the 2007-2008 credit crunch, as it's the only recent evidence of a recession and its impacts on housing delivery, although it's recognised that this isn't an exact science. The largest single year impact is identified in year 3 post-COVID-19. However, the reduction in delivery that may occur based on this evidence will not undermine the council's plan and the housing requirement overall. As a result, the council can be assured that it's in a relatively comfortable position in terms of housing supply and delivery, as shown in the number of years worth of deliverable sites assessed as 11.6 years. The council is also in a comfortable position in terms of housing delivery, as proven by the housing delivery test. As per the conclusion at paragraph 4.17 of this report, finally, assuming an economic impact associated with the pandemic restricted to the next 3 years, the council has sufficient room in terms of housing supply to face any short-term challenges in housing delivery. The only other note for members is that we have had it pointed out to us today that in Appendix A, there's 23 pages, but it appears that something's gone wrong, a little bit wrong with the numbering of the actual pages. The whole data is there, and we just need to sort out those page numbers, but otherwise it's correct.
So just to clarify, the information is correct. It's just the numbering's gone a little bit astray.
Yeah,
if
something's happened with that.
Services could note that, please, in the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if members have any other questions I can help with or answer at all.
I don't think there's any questions, but what I will be saying before I hand over to the portfolio holder, like I say, this is a good story. 300 plus starts this year, absolutely fantastic. When you think how we struggled over the years, and then to hit, I didn't realise, Sarah hadn't picked it up, but then to hit over 70 of those were affordables. Says it all, doesn't it? So well done to the team, absolutely well done. If you could pass that on right through, please, to the team. I now hand over to the portfolio holder, Lee Higgins, to move the recommendations at 2122.
Yeah, so thank you, Leader. I do move the recommendations on the paper. Just to add from what the officers have said, I think it's nothing short of excellent. 334 completions. I think that's the largest in over 20 years that Melton has delivered that amount in one particular year. And that has been a culmination of a lot of work from today. We are reporting that, but that goes all the way back from the planning decisions that were made probably years in advance. But also I'd like to pay tribute to some of the communities, especially because a lot of these completions have come from the rural areas, and some of our parish councils and village hall organisations have got involved very early on to work with people like Sarah and Jim Worley in terms of how development can benefit those communities. And I'll talk about one particular example a little bit later. But just on that is at on page 83 at 4.7 all the way through to 4.10, I think it shows there is obviously the different scenarios of the housing land supply, which is from the NPPF version of 11.6 years. But as we know, sometimes it appeals developers try and use different methodology and convince an inspector of a different way of looking at it. But the officers have looked at the worst case, which takes out sites which don't have permissions on. And even then, we still have 8.2 years. So including on any 5-year plus a 20% buffer being a 6-year, we're still comfortably ahead of that. Going on to the affordable housing, it's a great passion of mine, Councillor Pearson, Councillor Brown, and many other councillors who talk about affordable housing. And I think because we're looking to be more flexible on the affordable housing in terms of the different availabilities of affordable housing that is to be built out, it's not just shared ownership, it's not just social rent. There are a whole range of affordable housing. And while I was meeting a young family in Frisbee, basically they grew up in Frisbee, they had to then move to Melton, but they bought their first home in Frisbee. Their children now go to Frisbee School, and I won't mention the couple by name, but one thing that they're going to benefit from is that transfer of a 20% wealth from the developer to them as a very young family, and in 5 to 8 years' time, they will get to keep that 20% of wealth in there, which will set up that family and also provide the assurity to the village that young people are living in the Frisbee community and then their children going to the local school. And that is happening all over the borough. Just to turn to page 104, which is where the new dwelling distribution, just to talk about some areas and just as I congratulated some of the rural areas. Harby has delivered in the last 9 years 35 new houses, and I'd like to pay special mention to the Harby Village Hall Committee as well as the Parish Council there, as they have worked with officers, including Sarah and Jim, on getting funding from those houses to provide a new village hall. But then if you look at some other of the areas, it is seen that the delivery in some areas haven't quite performed just as yet, but hopefully they'll come online a little bit later in the next 3 to 5 years. Just on that, the devil's advocate part of it is, if we look at Melton Mowbray, it has only delivered 631 houses in the last 9 years compared to 2,200 over the previous 20 years. We've obviously got a lot of sites that have come forward, and there's still a lot of work, including the southern sustainable extension as well as the northern part as well. And it is obviously a key factor for when those sites start developing that we can deliver the much needed bypass for Melton, which is very much needed as well. And I think really, I'll just close on, I think the headline rate, as Sarah said, not only just the housing delivery, and as you rightly touched on, over 1 in 5 housing deliveries are now affordable housing. And that's going to people who very much want to get on the ladder. And that's a good thing for Melton and the economy going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to second the recommendations as well. Alan, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I just appreciate, I think it's an excellent report, and I think Lee was very clear and passionate, and I appreciate Lee's passion for affordable housing, but it does go to show that we do need to do a bit more work in Melton itself, and I look forward to potentially addressing that balance in the future.
Yeah, I think it was always expected that the rural areas would deliver that little bit earlier before the town area when it came to things like that. So time will come, Alan, as you well know. So we move to the vote on the recommendation as moved by Lee at 2122. If you could raise your hands, please. Councillor Higgins has, we all have. Democratic Conservatives to confirm the outcome. Natasha?
Yes, that's unanimously in favour of the recommendations, Councillor Orson.
Okay, thank you very much, Natasha. Now we move on, and I'm going to move exclusion of the public So I move that the public be excluded during the consideration of the following item of business in accordance with Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, under paragraphs 3 and 5. Paragraph 3, information relating to financial or business affairs of any particular person. Paragraph 5, information in respect of which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Higgins, all in favour, raise your hands, please. Is that noted, Natasha?
That's unanimous, Councillor Orson. Can I ask that you'd give me 1 minute to stop the broadcast on YouTube, please, whilst we move into exempt?
Before you do that, can I just confirm that Councillor Evans, Douglas and Cumbers can stop with us?
That's correct. Yes, in accordance with the procedure rules, they are able to stay observing the meeting.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Natasha.
Okay, thank you. I will confirm